Hello, beautiful people. Today we're going to be doing 6.5 to 6.6, solve absolute value equations and inequalities. Our SWABAT is going to be obviously to solve absolute value equations and inequalities. Your warm-up you should have done before this. If you did not, go ahead and press pause, do the work, and then you can check your answers with my answers. Number 1, no solution because -3 is not greater than -2. Number 2 is an and statement, and you should have shaded in the beginning. Make sure that your dots, your circles are both closed here and there. And check here to make sure that you remember to switch the sign because you did divide by a negative number. Same thing for this one. I had to do two things. Number 1, I had to switch the arrow because I divided by -1, and then I also wanted to remember to write your variable on the left side every single time. So vocabulary, you had a definition to write down from page 390. Just a quick example here. If I tell you that the absolute value of some number x is equal to 5, then the question that you have to ask yourself is, what can x be? Oops, what can x be? So x could be either 5, because the absolute value of 5 is 5, or x could also be -5, because the absolute value of -5 is also 5. Set that to say this: you should have two answers when you do these problems. Two answers. So looking at number 1, go ahead and write down what you think. Absolute value of x can be 9, or it could also be -9. Two options for that one. Now we're going to step it up just a little bit and do some actual algebra here. So for this one, when you set up your two equations, in order to get rid of the absolute value symbol, you're going to write 2m plus 5 is equal to 7, and 2m plus 5 is equal to -7. From here, you'll simply solve each equation. So you have 2m is equal to 2, divide by 2, divide by 2, m is equal to 1. Same thing on the other equation, and you'll have 2m is equal to -12, divide by 2, and m is equal to -6. I'll put an or in there. So two different answers. If you wanted to, on an answer column, you can just write m equals 1 and -6. That's kind of the shorthand way of doing it. Good. Moving on, we're going to step it up a little bit. Now the difference between numbers 1 and 2 and number 3 is what? Well, the negative sign, this -4 in front of here. So before you can set up your two equations, don't do that yet until the absolute value symbol is by itself. So you look at this -4 and you think, okay, well, what's it doing? It's multiplying. So to get rid of it, I'm going to divide by 4 and divide by 4, -4. So now they cancel out here, and I have 7k minus 2 is the absolute value of 7k minus 2 is equal to -2. I would probably stop here. Why? Ms. Fitzgerald, why would you stop here? Because I'm lazy? Not so much. Because this is saying that the absolute value of some quantity is equal to -2. Absolute value in your definition is a distance. It's a distance from 0. So as soon as I have a statement where the absolute value of whatever is equal to a negative number, it's false, because it's a distance, and a distance can't be equal to a negative number. So I'm going to say no solution on this one. Look for that. Be very, very conscious of that, so that once you have the absolute value by itself, if you have a negative number, not possible. End it there. If you look back to what we had done here, the difference is we were saying this absolute value equaled 7, and then to get rid of the absolute value symbol, we said this quantity equals 7 and this quantity equals -7. That's how we get rid of it. But if I start with a statement that says absolute value of x is equal, absolute value of x is equal to -9, right here I would say not possible, because the absolute value can't equal a negative number. Not going to work. So for this one, all you have to do is say no solution. Moving on, let's try to solve this one if possible. I bet you it's going to be possible though. So I'm going to first get the absolute value by itself. And so if this was an x, just an x right here and nothing else, think back to what you would do first. In order to get this by itself, wouldn't multiply or divide. I want to get rid of this subtraction. So I'm going to add 6 and add 6. I have -3 times the absolute value of 5h plus 1 is equal to -3. I'm still okay because the absolute value symbol is not by itself, so I'm not quite bothered by that negative sign. I'm going to divide by -3, divide by -3. The absolute value of 5h plus 1 is equal to 1. I'm okay. That means I can solve this one. If you could, please take a moment, pause, and work this problem on your own. I'll show you the solution once you press and pause. Okay, so I solved my two equations. I set them both up. One equal to positive 1, the other one equal to negative 1. I solved from I subtracted negative 1 on both sides, divided both sides by 5, and my answers were h equals 0 and h equals negative 2/5. Don't be alarmed by the fraction. I believe that you can handle it, and that's why I put it on there. Onward. So now you're going to have the absolute value of an inequality. So this first example, the absolute value of x less than 3 is still a distance, but they're saying that this distance is less than 3. So if you're imagining a number line, here's 0, and then it's 1, 2, 3. It's open because it's less than, and 1, 2, 3. Open because it's less than. Now, I'm 3 units here, and I'm 1, 2, 3 units there on this side. It's negative, though, looking at a number line. So this distance here is 3. This distance is 3. The distance that we're talking about, they're telling me is less than 3. So that means I'm going to shade here, because this distance less than 3 would be to there. This distance less than 3 would be to here. I'll tell you this, every time that you have a less than or even a less than or equal to, it's going to be an and statement. Less than slash less than or equal to will be an and statement every single time. With that said, if they're telling you that the distance is greater than 0, greater than 3, you're going to have, here's your negative 3, here's 0, here's 3, because this distance 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If it's greater than, that means it's not going to be from here to here. Instead, it's going to be bigger than that, which will be all the way out to infinity. Here, it'll be greater than that, which will also be all the way out into infinity. So anytime you have greater than, it's always going to be an or statement. For example, this would be x is less than negative 3, or x is greater than 3. And for here, you could write this as negative 3x and 3. My arrows are in the same direction, and they are pointing to the smaller number for my and statement there. Okay, let's look at an example or two, if you don't mind, and I'm sure that you don't. So, solve the inequality and then graph our solution as well. Same thing that we did before is how we're going to start this problem. So you're going to start with 2d minus 1 is greater than 5. That's always going to be the same. Always, always, always for your positive side. For your negative sign, 2d minus 1, guess what happens? I know you're thinking ahead. I know it is now less than negative 5. When you switch the sign, just like when you divide by a negative number or multiply by a negative number, flip the arrow, same thing has to happen here. We switch the sign, we switch the arrow. From here, beautiful people, do what you have been born to do and solve each of these inequalities, if you would, please. I'm talking as I write. Hopefully you're doing this on your own and not completely waiting for me. And I don't know if you noticed, but I changed my, oh, I did. I was supposed to do that. That is a 6. Just kidding. And then I get 2d is greater than 7. From here, I will divide both sides by 2. D is greater than 7/2 is about 3.5. I'm going to write it as 3.5 only because I'm graphing. I'm also noticing that this is a greater than symbol, so this is telling me that this is probably going to be an or. If you're not really sure about that, though, once you graph them and you check to see where the arrows are going, it'll all become very clear to you. 2d is less than negative 4 divided by 2 most of the time. Sometimes they'll try to trick you, though, and then see how that works, but I don't really think I would do that to you, so don't stress about that. So this is my statement. I'm going to see this is probably about negative 2. This would be 0. This would be 2, 3, and this would be 4. So this 3.5 is right in the middle here. It's an open circle. Okay, I'm going to erase that 4 because then you can't see that I'm labeling this 3.5. And at this circle, it's telling me to go to the right, so I'm going to shade to the right. Beautiful. And open circle here and shading to the left. So this is indeed an or statement. If it bothers you that that's way down here and that's way up here, I'll fix it. D greater than 3.5 or D is less than -2. Okay, last one for us. Again, similar to what you had to do with the equation, you first, before you set up your positive and negative sign, before that, I would love for you to add 13 and add 13. And I have 2 times the absolute value of 3w plus 8 is less than or equal to 8. Divide both sides by 2. Absolute value of 3w plus 8 is less than or equal to 4. This is great. Now you're in the same shape that you've been in before. This is a less than statement, so my prediction is that it's going to be an and statement. So 3w plus 8 is less than 4, and 3w plus 8 is greater than or equal to -4. Flipping the arrow once again. Solve each of these, please, and graph them, and then check your answer with me when you are done. Thank you so much. Okay, so I threw another fraction at you all, and these were my two answers. W is less than or equal to -1 1/3, and W is greater than or equal to -4. And then I shaded, and because it's an and statement, I shaded in the middle. Actually, this is -1/3, and it's going to the left, so I would shade that way. This is greater than -4, so I would shade to the right. So because this is an and statement, your next step for this one is to write this as one compound inequality. So I'm going to start off at -4. W is in the middle of those, and -1 and 1/3. Which way do my arrows point? Well, I'm looking at this, and it should be pointed to -4. Another way I know that is that my arrows should A, be pointing in the same direction, and B should point to the smaller number. That is correct for us, and so I think we're all good. Thank you all so much for all of your thoughts and all your prayers. Continue to do so for me and my family, and hopefully I'll be back right at the start of the next, well, when you come back from break, I should be back from doing the things that I need to do. Please be kind to whomever your sub is and be on your very bestest behavior. Other notes, if you plan on retaking the test for Chapter 5, please see Miss Milanovic, because she will have that laid out for you all. You can do that in class on Tuesday, or if you're feeling stressed about time, you could do that when we get back from break. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.